Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, and good morning to all
problem
of you.
with my
Sorry, aku host di sini ya. Host di ADB.
oh, what's happening here? Oh. But
I think you're okay, Pak Said, now. I think it looks fine.
are you sure it's okay?
Yeah, on my screen you're fine.
Okay, it doesn't look like as if it's the other way around. Yeah, it's upside down.
No, yeah, it was like I think you press something that it makes you turning around now. But
this
now
is okay,
it's fine.
yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, how about this then? How about this?
That also looks good.
Yeah,
It's okay.
that
Yeah?
looks good. That looks good.
Okay, on my screen it looks different. Okay.
Hi guys.
Hello,
Good
Pak
morning.
Bambang. Apa kabar? Hi, Vinny. Oh, he came on time.
Oh, so you're all having the virtual background. Let me also.
Since you guys already have a good background, so I will keep mine. Is it okay?
Also look wonderful, Pak Bambang.
You look very nice, Pak Bambang, the background.
Alright. I have to ask Susan Roth's permissions to do that one. He's the chief
That
knowledge
looks great.
officer.
If we all look the same, it gets boring.
Absolutely.
Prof.
Now you're telling me
Andrianto,
that, Susan. I just changed, and now you're telling me it's boring.
Good morning, everyone.
good morning, Prof. Ambar.
Rudy, how are you?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Pak Vini, how are you? Good.
Very good, very good.
Sorry, I don't have background. No one sent me
Hello, Pak Rudy.
the background, virtual background.
Actually, Pak Rudy is broadcasted from the Parliament office. Isn't that true, Pak Rudy?
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, Pak. Yeah, from Commission 11, as always, our partner in Parliament. Yeah, and also we apologize on behalf of the ministers. He cannot join us this morning.
Wonderful to have you there, Rudy. Great to see you. It's been a while.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much, Pak Rudy, for your willingness to fill in.
Good. And also to Pak Vini, congratulations with your new position.
Thank you very much. But I'm still in Jakarta. Can't
I know.
leave you easily.
Leave soon, right?
Still committed.
Good.
Good morning, Pak Bambang.
Oh, Prof. Ambar, Vice Rector, selamat pagi, Bapak. Sehat?
Pagi.
Morning, Prof.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Priyanto.
Mohon maaf itu Pak Bambang, Pak Rektor harus ada agenda that he has to attend personally. Jadi he asked me to represent him.
Yeah. Monggo, Bapak. It's a great pleasure to have you on both discussion and also the speech.
Terima kasih.
Should we start?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, yeah, everyone is already been here.
Yeah.
Let's start.
Okay, maybe I'll probably just I'll be the MC for or the host for the event. But let me know when we can start. Pak Chai, I'll wait for your cue.
Okay, Pak. We are waiting for Ibu Noni. I think she's trying to connect at the moment. But the rest of us are here. Let's give another minute so that just in case she manages to
I'll wait
connect.
for your cue, Pak. Yeah.
All right. There you go. Hi, Ibu Noni.
Hello, Ibu Noni.
Morning, Ibu Noni.
Okay, Pak Said, over to you, please.
Okay. Good morning, selamat pagi to everyone. distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Saeed Zaidanshah. I'm Deputy Country Director of Asian Development Bank in Indonesia Resident Mission. I would like to welcome all of you to the international webinar on creating Asian livable cities, co-organized by the Asian Development Bank and the University of Diponegoro. We will begin today's webinar with the welcoming remarks. First, I would like to invite our Deputy Director General for Southeast Asia, who is currently the Country Director for Indonesia, Mr. Winfried Wicklin, to open or to inaugurate the event. Vinny, over to you, please.
Thank you, Pak Said. Very good morning to you all. Selamat pagi, and a very warm welcome to this seminar today, a webinar on creating Asian livable cities. Special welcome greetings to Papa Rudy Supriyadi, Deputy Minister for Regional Development of Bappenas, Professor Ambarianto, Vice Rector of the University of Diponegoro, and Papa Bambang Susantono, the ADB's Vice President for Knowledge Management, Sustainable Development. Distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. So today's event builds on the close collaboration between the Asian Development Bank and the University of Diponegoro. We just earlier this year entered into a knowledge partnership between our two institutions, and I'd like to thank the university for the excellent collaboration. The ADB publication, Creating Livable Asian Cities, which was published just last month, examines Asia's urbanization challenges. It looks at solutions across 5 priority areas. 1, smart and inclusive urban planning. 2, on sustainable transport that provides equitable access to services and opportunities. 3, on sustainable energy sources that are less polluting. 4, innovative finance to bridge the resources gap. And finally, greater climate and disaster resilience. So today in this webinar, we'll have the opportunity to take stock of the challenges facing Asian cities, of which there are many, obviously, including poor planning, lack of affordable housing, inequality, pollution, climate vulnerabilities, and gaps in urban infrastructure. And we'll also today then discuss some of the proposed solutions to tackle these challenges across the 5 priority areas that I mentioned just a second ago. From our ADB perspective, we especially look forward to hearing from you, the participants, the panelists, your experiences, your insights, perspectives on both the issues and the solutions, and also how could development partners such as the ADB meaningfully contribute and support you toward creating more livable cities. So perhaps, if you indulge me, I might briefly share some examples of the relevant work that ADB is involved in Indonesia. So we are providing support in Indonesia, both in terms of finance and knowledge, in the areas of wastewater management, water supply, upgrading of informal settlements, financial management, smart city concepts, and sustainable transport. So just briefly, by way of examples and sound bites, in wastewater management, we are working with the Ministry of Public Works and Housing here in Indonesia to finance centralized waste systems in the cities of Jakarta, Medan, Makassar, Pontianak, and also in Jambi. In water supply, we are financing the upgrading of the water supply system in the cities of Palu and Sigi. That's part of ADB's support to the reconstruction of central Sulawesi after the devastating natural disaster that hit the area back in late 2018. In Makassar, we are working on a pilot to upgrade informal settlements by employing water-sensitive technologies. In terms of smart city concepts, we are supporting cities of Bandung, in Semarang, and Palembang also in utilizing a geospatial planning tool for urban development. We've also applied Earth observation technology in conjunction with planning of disaster rehabilitation projects in Central Sulawesi. Finally, and this is my last soundbite, in sustainable transport, we are supporting e-mobility through dialogue, policy support, and financing of e-vehicles. Here we are working with Damri on e-buses for the airport bus services in Jakarta, but also with PLN on charging stations. In closing, we have a packed agenda ahead of us. Once again, my gratitude and appreciation to Undip for the partnership, in particular also the colleagues at Undip's SDGs Center for the close collaboration in organizing this event, and to all of you for your participation. Best wishes for rich and productive discussions today. Thank you very much. Terima kasih.
Thank you so much, Vinny, for that inaugural speech. I would like to now invite Professor Ambarianto, Vice Rector of Universitas Diponegoro, to deliver the opening remarks on behalf of Professor Yos Johan Utama, Director of the University of Diponegoro. Professor Ambarianto, the floor is yours. Over to you, Pak.
Thank you, Pak. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. First of all, on behalf of Universitas Diponegoro, I would like to welcome and thank you, firstly, to the Vice President of Asia Development Bank, Dr. Bambang Susantono, Deputy Director General of Southeast Asia Asian Development Bank, Mr. Winfried Wicklin, and Minister of National Development Planning, Warsa Manafra, and all of the speakers and participants of this international webinar series of Universitas Diponegoro in collaboration with Asian Development Bank. Universitas Diponegoro has committed to take roles in the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals, which are an urgent call for action by all countries, both developed and developing, in a global partnership. The SDG Center of Universitas Diponegoro carry missions, and one of them is expanding networks and partnerships with affiliated counterparts and stakeholders to open up space for dialogues to increase awareness in achieving SDG targets. Based on the SDG targets, Sustainable Development Goal number 11, make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, and resilient and sustainable, unpacks exactly what it is that makes a livable city. Livable cities, one step towards sustainable development, success in creating and achieving livable cities as the targets under SDG 11 sets the stage for achieving targets in many of the other SDG goals. Cities drive development in Asia, but they face challenges that must be addressed for them to become sustainable, competitive, resilient, and productive. I think several major challenges faced by ASEAN cities, including poor planning, a lack of affordable housing, inequalities, pollution, climate vulnerabilities, and urban infrastructure deficits. It might be tempting to think that COVID-19 has changed everything. A more useful lens is to focus on how the pandemic has accelerated pre-pandemic trends and exacerbated the pre-pandemic inequalities. The COVID-19 pandemic has underscored just how unequal urban services have become, negatively affecting the access by the poor and vulnerable. Equity and livability are central to ASEAN future. Climate change poses a huge challenge for the most vulnerable. Housing in many Asian cities has rapidly become unaffordable to large segments of the population. Transport system, for example, which are a lifeline for work, school, healthcare, shopping, and recreation, are the source of traffic safety and pollution hazards that are more common in lower-income neighborhoods. Urban planners Policymakers and leaders should give attention to the policy tools that increase opportunities while building the foundation for economic growth. The concept of livability is an excellent rubric in that work. The concept of livable cities puts people and community well-being at the center of urban development and decision-making. Although definitions vary, livability has 5 cross-cutting themes. ADB defined livable cities as 5 E's. These are firstly economic competitiveness, environmental sustainability and resilience, equity and inclusiveness, enabler, and lastly, engagement. We live in an urbanizing world. Cities are increasing in prominence as major social and economic hubs. The pandemic has also forced us to relook at how cities are planned and built so that our future cities can be safer and more resilient against crisis. So here I would like to highlight how we can create more livable cities in Asia. A more livable cities in a great place to live. It is more resilient as well with competitive social, economic, and environmental advantages. Each part of the society, such as universities, communities, private sector, government, NGOs, and others are having crucial roles as key development actors. And the collaboration and cooperation among them will create synergy to accelerate the livable cities achievement. In closing, let me reiterate Universitas Diponegoro's commitment to support the creation of more livable ASEAN cities. We must always adopt the tailored approach to build innovative, evidence-based, and integrated solutions. Working together, we can create cities that are not only green, but also inclusive, resilient, and sustainable, become more livable. I wish you all fruitful discussion. I hope that the knowledge transfer and discussion in this webinar will give us a glimpse of perspective on how the livable city look like and how we are going to achieve that. At last, I hope this webinar will be beneficial for all of us, the participants, the speakers, Universitas Diponegoro, and ASEAN Development Bank in particular. Thank you very much. Back to you, Bapak. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, Professor Ambarianto, for that welcoming speech. Now we have the privilege to listen to the keynote speech from the Honorable Suharto Monoarfa, Minister for National Development Planning, Head of Bappenas of the Republic of Indonesia, who will be represented by Deputy Minister for Regional Development of Bappenas, Mr. Rudy Suprihadi Prawiradinata. The Honorable Minister currently has to attend a session in Parliament and therefore is not able to be here in person. But his speech will be delivered by Pak Rudy. Over to you, Pak Rudy.
Thank you, Pak Said. First of all, on behalf of the Minister, I would like to apologize. He cannot join us this morning. Actually, he really eager to join this webinar as he always passionate to discuss about the urban development. But unfortunately, as you mentioned, that yesterday we just got invitation from the Parliament have to have a meeting this morning. Actually, I have to join him as well, but as a deputy, it is still possible to be a little late. So allow me to deliver his speech. Yang terhormat Dr. Bambang Susantono, Vice President for Knowledge Management and Sustainable Development ADB, Dr. Robert Gill, Chief Sector Officer Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department of ADB, Professor Johan Utama, or who representing him, Vice Rector University of Diponegoro, Bapak Said Saidansyah, Deputy Country Director ADB Indonesia, and certainly Pak Vini, the man behind the ADB here in Indonesia. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Bapak Said Saidansyah, Deputy Country Director of ADB Indonesia, for inviting Bapenas to country launch and international webinar on creating Asian livable city, our work in Bapenas. And certainly this is a future challenge as we are facing urbanizations, highly urban in the long run. Ladies and gentlemen, rapid urbanization has continually happened in Indonesia. And Bureau of Statistics has estimated that in 2045, approximately about 67% of the population will live in cities. This future condition provide opportunities for Indonesia, but only if it is well managed. In East Asia Pacific country, every 1% increase of urban population correlate with increased per capita income by 2.5 to 3% per year. In Indonesia, for one increase by 1.4%. This conditions provides important signal to us that cities in Indonesia have not gained as much as other cities in neighboring countries. Shortages of access to basic services. I think Pak Bin also mentioned about this. Infrastructures such as drinking water, sanitation, housing, and I think one of the most important in cities is transportation system. Distinguished us, during this pandemic, we spend more time at home than before. Our home has become our office, our children's school, our main venue to interact with friends virtually. Better access to housing and telecommunication for households are urgently needed compared to pre-pandemic condition. However, if we observe and analyze data on housing, approximately 20% of urban population live in slum areas without or with limited access to services, including certainly internet things. For urban dwellers who do not have a privilege to stay at home, access to public transportation is in need for improvement so that they can travel safely within a city, as well as intercity or commuters. Distinguished guests, this by ADB provides insights on how to plan and develop cities that are not only efficient but also convenient to live in. This book elaborates 5 priorities to create livable cities and realize a sustainable urban future in Asia. For pursuing smart inclusive planning, sustainable transport, sustainable energy, financial innovation to resilient cities. Ideas offered in this can be used to enrich diverse policy laid out in 2020 to 2024 Nation Medium-Term Development Plan. This plan have set urban development, climate resilience, and infrastructure development among its main priorities. Infrastructure development focuses on 4 categories that are relevant to achieving or livable cities. 1, improvement of basic services provisions. 2, increase development. Next, responding to urban needs. 4, increasing energy affordability and access to digital platform. Climate resilient development policies to ensure attainment of resilient and sustainable cities vision. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take this opportunity to share with you some initial advancement in urban development. During this pandemic, we observe significant changes in how the government works. Several reforms are underway. Not only reform in health sector, but most importantly, a structural reform. One notable trigger in enactment of Law 11/2020, that is job creation. The law has many features. One of the significantly influence on the plan and urban areas. The law simplifies procedures, needed to access to digital and development plans, as well as establish an online system for issuance. For urban development, this approach provides opportunities for stakeholder urban, encourages closer collaboration among actors, and on many possibilities for blended financing in urban development, optimizing untapped potential of stakeholders and financial resources. For metropolitan areas, the use of technology is in place. Big data is used as means to provide better understanding on how the metropolitan works. New policy is also in place and encourage improvement in metropolitan governance, planning, and management. Honorable guests, even though we are facing difficult times caused by this pandemic, the topic we are discussing today provides improved understanding on how to better manage our urban areas. I believe new insight, new innovations, new strategies are in progress for our future sustainable cities. I hope this forum can serve as a venue for collaboration in realizing our common goal, creating livable cities, sustainable cities for all. Stay safe and healthy. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Minister of Development Planning, Bapak Suharto Monoarfa. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Pak Rudy, for that keynote speech from the Honorable Minister of Planning, of National Planning. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Bambang Susantono, ADB Vice President for Knowledge Management and Sustainable Development, to provide us with his presentation that will set the stage for our discussion today. VP Susantono, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pak Said Saidansa. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dr. Rudy Prawiranata, Deputy Minister of Bappenas, Professor Ambarianto, Vice Rector of Undip, Professor Agung Wibowo, Dean of Engineering of Undip, my colleagues from ADB, Winfried Wicklin, Deputy Director General of Southeast Asia, Dr. Robert Gill, Chief Sector Officer, Dr. Susan Roth, Chief Knowledge Officer, and of course, Said Zaidansa, Deputy Country Director of Indonesia. Our distinguished speakers and panelists, Professor Marlon Bornet from University of Southern California, Ibu Noni from Bluebird, Ibu Sinta Danuwandoyo from bubu.com, and Dr. Wiwandari Handayani from Undip. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good day to all of you. It is my great pleasure to speak today at this webinar on creating Asian livable cities, co-hosted by ADB and the Undip, Universitas of Diponegoro. I would like to share with you today ADB experience in working with ADB member countries to make the cities in Asia and the Pacific more livable. Before the pandemic hits us, we projected that digitalization and the fourth industrial revolution will be the dominant forces of future cities. But one of the mega trends that undoubtedly will define the future of development in Asia cities is urbanizations. More than half of Asia population is now living in cities, and almost 2/3 of the population will be urban residents by 2050. Asian cities are hubs of economic and social opportunity for people and businesses, and they are booming. However, this growing urbanization does not neatly translate into increased opportunities for their residential populations. As the population expands, the urgency to address critical developmental issues becomes greater. These issues include inadequate spatial and economic planning, urban infrastructure deficits, as mentioned by the two previous speakers, significant air and water pollution, the growing impact of climate change, and lack of affordable housing. The COVID-19 pandemic has underscored just how unequal urban services have become, negatively affecting the access by the poor and vulnerable. Most of the world megacities are in Asia, as we know all of that. Many of the medium-sized cities and hundreds of small cities are also found in Asia. We are, in short, a heavily urbanized region, set to become even more urban in the coming years and decades. These slides of ADB report 2019 use nighttime light satellite image to analyze the forming of not only megacities, but also mega regions across Asia. as you can see over the time. Major cluster of cities in developing Asia plus Japan, for example, are shown here, including the Jawa Island Pantura mega regions that comprises the northern coastal area of Java, stretching from Jakarta to Surabaya. The trend is clearly heading toward progressively accelerated urbanizations. All problems and challenges in the urban areas lead us to a conclusion that we must manage urbanization well, because it fits economic growth in a two-way process. As shows on the screen here, the chart and trend line based on the blue dots shows that developing Asia, countries that urbanize faster tend to see faster per capita GDP growth also. While growth promotes urbanizations, cities also promote economic growth. So how does this work? Cities increase productivity through several channels, collectively known as agglomeration economies. And as the productivity increases, more firms and households are drawn into cities, increasing their size. Unfortunately, if urban infrastructure does not keep up, using good urban planning to ensure affordable housing and sanitation, for example, the result is congestion or worse, the gridlock. So one of the key challenges is that such infrastructure can be very expensive. For example, according to a recent assessment of metro system in Asia, the cost per kilometer of modern metro lines has ranged from $33 million to $166 million. And the total cost will be anything between $3 billion and $5 billion. Other sectors are no different. Water supply and sanitation system are also very costly. So let's bring this closer to Indonesia. The chart I use here shows Indonesia investment need over the 5 years period between 2016 and 2020. It comes from our 2017 flagship report on the Asia Pacific region infrastructure investment needs and was computed using a mix of actual and projected data on investment. While the years covered are now past, the story remains relevant even today. Essentially, to meet its infrastructure needs, Indonesia needs to both increase its infrastructure investment in a big way and also deploy selectively and strategically the resources that are available. ADB has been supporting countries in developing Asia through a variety of projects to help their cities evolve, to become more sustainable, competitive, health, safe, resilient, and inclusive for all, or in short, more livable for all city dwellers. The principle of livability puts the well-being of people and communities at the center of urban planning and development. Of the many examples of ADB projects which expose this principle, let me share with you just a couple today. The integrated rural urban infrastructure development in Jiangxi province of the People's Republic of China is introducing intelligently planned and protected urban green spaces in 16 cities to reduce flood risk and manage water resources. Another one is Sustainable Urban Transport Project for the Lao People's Democratic Republic's fast-growing capital, Vientiane. The project is building a bus rapid transit system, BRT, like in Jakarta, and developing other transport solutions to ease traffic in Vientiane, the capital of Laos. This is critical to address the congestion issues I mentioned earlier. Other projects, space-based technology and ICT to strengthen disaster resilience in Armenia, in Bangladesh, in Fiji and the Philippines, and also Bangalore Metro in India. ADB is also developing urban social and economic sectors because we want to have all sectors covered. As you can see from the slide, these include developing inclusive business in India, innovative approaches in developing elderly care in Hebei in People's Republic of China, developing training programs that meet the demands of labor market in China, and enhancing access of poor women and children to health facilities in Bangladesh. These urban sector projects have been anchored in ADB knowledge product, some of which are shown here on the screen on this slide. They range from policy-oriented analytical studies with region-wide coverage to demand-driven technical studies on specific cases. For example, last month, we just published a report of land value capture for Indonesia. The report is a follow-up of previous 2019 ADB report on the importance of LVC, land value capture, for Jakarta, Bangkok, and Manila, proposing broad policy recommendations on the use of the LVC mechanism in developing country contexts. In the past year, ADB has also issued a number of knowledge products specifically to help countries manage the short and the medium effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and to chart their pathways toward recovery. Some are sector or country focused, while others are on macroeconomic topics such as economic forecasts and global trade and value chains development, for example. I would like also to highlight the purpose of our discussion today. Is it to set the sector and thematic guidance notes? They outline recommendations, for example, on how the sector and thematic areas such as transport, education, public-private partnership, and of course, livable cities can contribute to the pandemic of recovery, in line with the Build Back Better principles. So, COVID-19 is a large urban crisis. About 90% of all confirmed COVID-19 cases through the first half of 2020 were reported in cities and towns. So the impacts of the pandemic are most felt by residents of cities. COVID-19 has exacerbated these urban issues and exposed new ones. I have already touched on the inadequacy of the urban and social infrastructure, which certainly has been exacerbated by the pandemic. Other issues include the challenge of the digital divide, the local government capacity, and urban economic crisis, with disproportionately consequences for the vulnerable populations. So, colleagues, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, ADB Livable City Guidance Notes on the Pandemic Response propose a 5E approach to respond to these issues. The E stands for number 1, economic competitiveness. Second one, environmental sustainability and resilience. Third one, equity and inclusiveness. Fourth one, enablers. And the fifth one is engagement. By enablers, we are talking about policy, strategies, joint action plans, and joint system, including the digitized ones and other governance issues. And engagement, very important one, is about collaborations and partnership with a broad range of stakeholders, all of you. Decades of such experience, project and knowledge work have allowed ADB to compile a new book on creating livable city. This is the one that we are going to talk about today. It explores how the multiple challenges facing Asian cities and tackles the fundamental questions. How do we make our cities more livable in the near future? It also carries greater meaning as it was conceived, prepared, and launched in the middle of the pandemic. The book highlights 5 key priorities: 1, smart and inclusive planning; 2, sustainable energy; 3, sustainable transport; 4, innovative finance; and 5, resilience and rejuvenations. So in our discussion today, I'm looking forward to delving into these 5 priorities that we have identified. We would like to hear from you on how they can help us to adopt and adapt a tailored approach to build innovative, evidence-based, and integrated solutions that is suited for each city's unique context. There is no one-size-fits-all. We all know that every crisis provides an opportunity to make bold choices that help us leapfrog toward a more green, smart, resilient, inclusive, and sustainable future. On that note, I thank you all again for participating in this seminar and looking forward to a fruitful discussion. Thank you very much. Back to you, Pak Said.
Thank you so much, VP Susantono, for that important speech that will then set the stage for our next session, which is a moderated discussion on the topic on the topic of our publication, which is creating livable Asian cities. This discussion will be chaired by my colleague, Ms. Susan Roth. She is ADB's Chief of Knowledge Advisory Services Center. So we have our presenters ready. We have our chair here. So let's get to it. I'd like to now invite Ms. Roth or Dr. Roth rather to chair the discussion. Over to you, Dr. Roth.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Said. Thank you for all the eminent speakers today, for opening the session and for also giving some context and details on the livable cities trends and the challenges we face. And I think what we want to do now in this discussion is really, how do we make these plans that we have actually implementable and what is happening on the ground, and then also discuss what this rich region in Asia and the Pacific can actually offer in terms of learning to other regions and cities in the world. And so we want to start with that. And I would like to invite now, please, Professor Marlon from the Department of Urban Planning and Special Analysis of the University of Southern California to share with us a little bit about what do you think can other cities or also students across the world actually learn from Asian cities? And then, of course, we would like to hear from your perspective and expertise, what do you think are some of the really pressing issues, the trends that you can see in Asia, which require more focus? And while you think about your response, I'd like to invite the audience, especially, of course, the students who are listening today, to please use the question and answer function and drop your questions. If it's in Bahasa Indonesia, that's not a problem. We will all translate it so I can also understand and make sure the right panelists can get the right question. So please make sure you can use this rich experience that we have here at the table today. So over to you, Marlon. We're excited to hear about your views. What can we learn from Asia?
Okay. Susan, thank you. And thank you so much to all the colleagues at the ADB and partner institutions that are hosting this effort. When colleagues at the ADB approached me and asked if I could help in really only a small way with this important book, I was quite excited because much of my research and teaching is in transportation, and Asia really offers some important lessons. In fact, 2 years ago, I took a traveling class from University of Southern California to Hong Kong to study land value capture in their transit system. The purpose was that Hong Kong is really quite possibly the world leader in transit and finance. And it was when the students very early on realized that they were going to have to make a policy presentation to maybe the best agency in the world or one of the best on this topic. And they were a little taken aback. And I say rewarding because we like to put our big challenges in front of our students. I think the land value capture angle is something where places in the world can definitely learn. By land value capture and transportation, what we mean is using the land value increase that the transportation system will create by creating better access, using that land value increase to help finance the system in some way. The logic would be that somehow you would, tax away part of that land value increase and maybe borrow against that to build the infrastructure. And many Asian cities have been leaders in this. I mentioned Hong Kong, definitely Japan also. This is an area where certainly in North America, we lag behind and have not been good at. The benefits of land value capture are that you create a very tight nexus between the financial feasibility of a project and its transportation performance. And so you create incentives to really put performance at the center of all elements of planning and implementation. And so I think that's an area where we can learn. Let me real quickly point out one tension that I think also Asia is also at the forefront of, and that is that we have to think about how you incorporate land value capture into the need for housing affordability. And the Creating Livable Asian Cities book has a wonderful chapter illustrating how housing affordability is a problem in a very large number of Asian cities. And one of the tensions using land value as a financing mechanism is how do you balance that idea that on net, if the land value goes up, your financing stream improves, with the need to deliver affordability. And so I'd be really curious to hear more thoughts on that. But let me pause just to kind of hit a highlight that in these financing mechanisms, I think Asia is really a global trendsetter.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Marlon. I think this is a great point for discussion and tension. It would be great to hear from the audience. what you think needs to happen, because obviously there are policy and governance frameworks required to manage the dilemma between increasing the value of land and at the same time making housing affordable in cities. And that brings us to the next point, I think, which you pointed out in our pre-discussion as a major issue, and that is resilience. We just heard that most people will live in cities in Asia in the coming years, and that creates basically resilient risk hotspots. How do you see that?
You know, the resilience question is huge, clearly. I think we'd want to think in a context-dependent way. I think some of the Asian cities have opportunities to jump across different levels of technology to implement, you know, very smart systems that might use mobile GPS, censored systems to quickly adapt infrastructure, optimize, and possibly even be able to cope quickly and promptly in disasters. Although I want to flag, everything we know suggests you need some robust social systems and governance systems to stand beside the technology side. But again, I think there's some good examples, and so let me hesitate to go into specifics, but to leave that as an interesting question that maybe our audience can bring to us.
Yeah, thank you, Marlon. I think this is a great segue to Ibu Vivi. To share with us from her perspective as the head of the Department of Urban and Regional Planning at the University of Diponegoro, is what are you teaching to your students in terms of good examples of livable cities in Indonesia, how to prioritize certain actions, but also how to leapfrog, in a context where you already have densely populated cities. So would be wonderful to hear some of your views here. Ibu Vivi.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Rod. Yeah, we are in the urban planning department, of course, very much highlight the issues of urbanization and livable cities, and as an important spot for our students to be further elaborated. We have some joint studio works, and also maybe everybody here are already familiar that at the moment the national government of Indonesia launched what we call as Curriculum Merdeka, or maybe in English independent curriculum, that allows students to learn in other universities, and also to learn in the real development project initiated by the government agency. Like now we have, for example, a collaboration with the Ministry of Spatial Planning, and at this sense, we can invite students to have a more real experience and on how they can learn, and also take some lesson learned for their future in promoting the livable cities. And yeah, and I think we also have, I need to a little bit point out the role of Planning School Association, because this Planning School also guide all universities in planning department to help and direct the students to have more elaboration related with these livable cities issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivi. I mean, the livable cities concept has evolved in the last couple of years. So, and looking at the book that ADB has just published, how is that now translating into what would I say, different perspectives for students who the stakeholders are? You mentioned governance, you mentioned the political economy in cities. Is that something that students are more and more aware of and that you are teaching?
Yeah, sure. By developing a more real platform for the student to learn with different agencies. Of course, there are more highlighted issues, mostly related with the urbanizations and resilience, because based on our last census data, we know that the population in Indonesia specifically keep growing, and there are more people live in urban areas, and it creates more challenges and disturbance for any cities, and it should supported by a strong governance system, and also it leads to more challenging issues in which the student need to be keep updated with the current situation. And I think in the learning from the ADB book, the newest methodology to use satellite data in the planning, and also more awareness on how to promote like a innovative financial system is something, some kind of, I call it a soft skill that need to be developed by the student. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for this input. So now we heard from the academia, and now we would like to hear actually from the private sector. And we have here with us Ibu Noni. She's the president and director of Bluebird, and she was also formerly involved in intelligent transport system in a company. And so I think what is very interesting is how are the realities for the private sector. I mean, Ibu Noni, you run one of the largest taxi transport fleets in Indonesia. Can you share maybe some views how you think the private sector is actually contributing to the mobility in livability and the livability of cities? And then maybe you can share what in your view are some of the policy measures and public sector measures that need to be put in place to really enhance sustainable and smart transport in cities.
Yeah, thank you very much, Susan. When we talk about livable cities and how mobility can support the livable city factors, there are 4 factors that are very important to think about. The first one is safety. So we heard about sustainable transport earlier, but safety, it should be number 1. And inclusiveness also is a very important factor, integrated, and sustainable. So those 4 factors are very important factors. But we have to come to the reality. I actually have a slide, if I may, just to share so that all of us can see the reality that we are facing in Jakarta at this moment.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so there you go. So this is what is going on in Jakarta, right? Every day we all know that we're facing congestion. While we had a break for about a year and a half because of the COVID situation, but now it comes back, and we all know that, and we experience it every single day now. The bad congestion in Jakarta and the pollution. Jakarta still the 9th city with high pollution, even in 2021. You know, once we started, the economy started, people started to move around again, then the pollution started to increase. Although I have to remind everyone that transportation is not the major contribution to the air pollution in Jakarta. There are also office buildings, there are also industrial areas surrounding Jakarta. Unequal accessibility, so inclusiveness, it is still a huge issue in Jakarta. I mean, I'm not mentioning in other cities in Indonesia. And not sustainable, neglected employee welfare, because this is all related to livable cities, subpar service quality, and again, safety. And if I can go to the second slide, this is just to show how mobility as one small factor can affect the whole quality of livable cities itself. I'm not going to go through each factors in here, but I'm going to leave it to ADB if any of the participant wants to look at it later on. So then the question comes back to what can we as a private company contribute positively to try to give a solution for this livable city issues. We have started on the next slide by trying to have an integrated public transport. Can we have, yes, thank you. So this is just one of the examples that public companies can do, because we need to be able to contribute without having to wait for the government regulations and policies. Government policies have been improving very rapidly to support livable cities in Indonesia. But I think I always say we should not wait. You know, we should try to do something. We collaborate. So what Bluebird has been doing is, one, we do our own initiatives in sustainability. We are still the first taxi and only taxi company in Indonesia that have zero emission taxis. Operating in Jakarta, and we're already piloting in Bali at this moment. But the integration of public transport is one of the very important factors to support livable cities. We work together with MRT Jakarta, we work together with KAI, and today we're actually launching with Garuda Indonesia. So we will create this integrated, seamless public transport. It was mentioned earlier that ADB is supporting Damri also. The Ministry of Transportation is opening lines of public buses now open for private companies to join in. And majority of the buses will use electric buses. Now, one of the challenges also, not just the government policy. We're facing challenges in finding sustainable financial support. When we want to, like what happened with Bluebird, our capital to invest in electric vehicle was 5 times higher than the capital needed for the combustion engine vehicle. So that by itself, it's still a big challenge for private companies like us. So all of us need to find the sweet spot, which not just riding on the technology advancement. We need to have the support from the financial institutions and policies as well. We need to find the economic value so that private companies who have still responsibility to have profit to be given to the shareholders, to see this as an economic benefit. And of course, what is most important, we need to put the humanity factor into it. Because a lot of times we're looking into the technology part, the economic value part, and missing the humanity factor of it, which is inclusiveness, affordability, safety, and all of those things. Maybe I'll stop there first, Susan. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ibu Noni. I think you hit the nail on the head with the aspect of human-centeredness. Livable cities have to have the humans at the center, and there's a great chapter about that also in the book, which is more oriented towards gender-sensitive design, but that applies, of course, across human-centered design, the principles. And the second one you said is new kinds of partnerships, right? Where we have to work together on a joint vision, which is to make cities livable. And then we need to have mechanisms for public, private sector, academia, civil society, the population to come together to find solutions. So that's kind of these urban platforms that need to be created and fostered. So many thanks for providing a great example on how Bluebird is doing that in Indonesia. And I think what we want to hear now would be great to hear a bit more about smart cities and what's happening there with the technology solutions, because often we are talking about, technology as the beacon of hope. I think that's what also Professor Marlon said. Maybe we can leapfrog to use it for better planning, to use it for better transport systems. So let's hear from Ibu Shinta, who is the founder and CEO of bubu.com, which is a startup venture building platform, her perspectives. Can you share with us, please, what in your experience is still missing to nurture these kind of technology startup platforms and incubators in cities? And how can the technology solution that these startups provide be really, if I may call it, mission-oriented, the mission of livable cities? The social purpose. So excited to hear from you.
Thank you, Dr. Roth. I think just to set the platform, when we talk about smart city concept, actually we're referring to the fact that we're able to empower using technology to have part of our daily life. And, when we talk about livable city, definitely, I think since, I've been dealing with tech startups since 2012, because I was a venture capitalist then. And so, I've seen how this tech startup actually can help empower livable cities for us. And under bubu.com, we started a new venture called startupindonesia.co, which is actually a platform to help connect startups in Indonesia, all over Indonesia, have to give them equal access to in terms of networks, in terms of capital, investors, angel investors, mentors, venture capital. So we want to give the same access for everyone in Indonesia, for all the startups, not only in Jakarta, because the past years we've seen a lot of the startups that are getting funded are mostly in Jakarta. So we decided in 2019, end of 2019, we launched this platform called startupindonesia.co. The idea is to give equal access to everybody in any islands, in any city, to have the same access of network, mentorship, investors, and all that. So if you can see on the slide here, the startup that are already in our database. So 50% of the startups are already on revenue stage, that's great. That's what all investors want to see, is the revenue stage. And more than half are from outside of Jakarta, that's our mission. We want to empower more than just people outside. Not just in Jakarta, but outside of Jakarta as well. And we have about 30 plus industries and sectors within our database. And so you can see, these are actually startups, tech startups that can help empower and create our more livable cities in Indonesia. So if you can go to the next slide. Let me share with you a number of startups that are actually they're helping to impact smarter living and digital cities in Indonesia. Of course, everybody knows Clue. Yeah, it's one of the early smart city startup in Indonesia, and it's quite successful because they recently raised a Series B from KDDI and Telkomsel, and actually Clue is they actually survive the fact with the because when we talk about government, usually when they change the power, they change the platform, but actually Clue was able to actually stay until today, and people are still using it. It's for the citizen engagement. So I think that's really key, to be able to use the same platform throughout, because we learn from the mistakes. So it's something that you grow as a process, and you cannot be just one platform and then you move on to another platform, but it's something that we have to actually learn from day one. And there's a company called NodeFlux, which is a vision AI startup. This company actually helps to power the current CCTV and traffic monitoring in Jakarta. Just quite a successful company as well. And I think when we talk about smart city, we cannot not mention education as well, because I think education is key. Especially here at this moment during the pandemic. There's this company called Pro-Edu, which is not necessarily doing education. It's not an education platform for students, but it's actually for the teachers. So this platform, they help fasten and digitize administrative process and quality improvement for teachers. So they do training, they do workshop for teachers, and also teachers have to do a lot of administration, and it takes hours for them. And with this platform, it can help shorten to 20 minutes instead, which is that is groundbreaking for teachers actually. And then there's this company called Surya, which is a renewable energy startup. They're pioneering the zero down method of switching to solar. So they provide affordable and reliable solution to solar panels for houses. And another interesting startup, which is Botika, which is speech to text AI startup that helps Jakarta government with the COVID-19 report. And another one that I think I need to highlight which is this company called, the company is like PT Esa Kreasi Negeri, but they're famous for the 112 emergency call. So this company actually, they power the engine and run the analytics on all the calls. So it's easier for them to get to analyze the data, the complaints of the citizens, because they're using the speech to text. So that's also kind of helpful. So you kind of learn all the different complaints, and you can do the big data to analyze all these complaints from the different citizens. And I think all this how to make them like really successful. So of course, down to the collaboration, it's really needed. And I think if we talk about from the government perspective, I think it's really important to have a clear vision, consistency, and continuity of the initiative. Like I said before, CLUE is able to go through all the different governors, the new and it's still used until today. So I think that's really, really important. We want to have a long-term strategic plan, how to execute it, and the most important thing is like have people to execute it. I think it's really important to train the staff because being digital is not that easy as well. So education is really important for the adoption, and that's something that we want to see more support from the government. And then also the policy, we need policy to encourage smart city development and the collaborative environment as well. We want to push more collaboration with the startups. And why do you need to reinvent the wheel when we have all this startup, right?
Yeah.
All this startup, and they're really good, they're really passionate with what they're doing. So why don't we collaborate and find the right startup to solve different problems? I think that's really something that really needed at the moment. So the adoption, the education, it takes money. So that's something that probably we need also from ADB, the financial capital support. That's definitely really, really important as well. Yes.
Thank you. I think there are three key takeaways for us. One is smart cities needs to have a certain governance system, and cities should have interoperable platforms for these startups or companies which have digital solutions to actually plug in and be sustainable and not fail when a new platform comes. So the whole issue about open source interoperability, which is key. The other aspect you said is there are job opportunities in creating livable cities and in addressing these challenges and problems, but we need also talent. And of course, universities are responsible to kind of creating this talent with the creative thinking capacity. And I think the last one was really, again, coming back to collaboration and partnerships, which seems to be the running theme through this panel today, collaborating and working together. And with that, I'm very happy now to invite our final panelist for this discussion here, and that is Professor Amber. We've heard from him already earlier today. And I think what we would like to hear from you, and we had some questions about the topic already, is we've spoken a lot about livable cities and how to retrofit and improve, but how do we address now this issue of expansion of cities, of now also growing secondary cities? How do we balance between urbanization, environmental protection, and then also greening? What is some of your experience, especially from the work you're doing on coastal development? So over to you, Professor Amba.
Thank you, Susan. It is really interesting topics, considering that many of us have been visiting many different cities in the world or in Indonesia as well as and abroad, so that we can compare livability of the cities. And after listening from all the speakers regarding livable cities, especially in Asia, which has to be inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, with all the requirements that they should have, so that people or community can live not only in healthy environment, but also in availability of public facilities such as reliable transportation, smart facilities, including public space, green space, but also communities should feel secure in terms of all aspects of life. It is interesting that you actually brought about clustering new development, especially along coastal area. As we know that many major cities around the world are located in coastal areas. And this is probably due to the fact that historically, probably, traveling between islands was using boats and ships. And when the people discover new land, they build or establish community in the coastal area. And actually, one characteristic that in this coastal area, usually they have also a river, so that they can travel deep in the mainland. in Indonesia, if I'm not mistaken, the number of cities or districts located in the coastal area is about 300 cities or districts, or probably more. We also realized that coastal area is very unique, not only in regard to the location. I mean, they are located in coastal area, but the fact that this certain area is heavily influenced by what happened in the mainland, as well as what happened in the sea, meaning that people who live in the area have to be aware of what is going on in the mainland and the sea. They have to be aware about ocean hydrological as well as mainland development processes. The community and local government have to be understand and aware, including cycle of this processes. They have to be prepared to face all the incidents, if you allow me to call that way, to be survive and safe in their home in the area. So when you are mentioned about clustering new development in the area, everyone who get involved have to understand that phenomenon I have mentioned above. What you can find coastal area that less dangerous. For example, what I mean by less dangerous is location which is not directly facing open oceans, no big wave coming, for example, no regular cyclones. The differences between low and high tide is not that high. So there is no water inundation in the area, for example. The ocean in front was always calm and all year, probably because of there is not an island which covered from the big waves and strong current in the front of the area. Then people will enjoy the place, especially when they got a bonus, either sunset or sunrise, for example. Actually, one unique characteristic of coastal area in regard to big wave and strong current is that their occurrence is really depending on at least 3 ecosystems, which are mangrove, which is located in on the beach, and then seagrasses usually in the front of the beach, and coral reef which is located further on the sea. These 3 ecosystems are working together, so collaboration is not only between institutions but also ecosystem, between mangrove ecosystem, seagrasses, and coral reefs working together to protect coastal area from big waves and strong currents. So you cannot just cut all mangrove trees when develop housing, for example. So protecting this ecosystem is very important in regard to that issues, let alone when we are talking about diversity of the organisms which live in these 3 ecosystems, as well as their economic value in terms of fisheries, for example, tourism, and so forth and so on. Therefore, when we are talking about new development in coastal area, there has to be a balance, and that has been mentioned earlier, between new development and protecting natural ecosystem, which actually to protect the development of natural disaster. So resiliency and sustainability are important issues in this matter. Detailed study has to be conducted in regard to how to have a good balance to establish livable cities in coastal area. Tailored approach has to be taken in special location like coastal area, and university can play important role in this matter. Having said that, talking about protecting natural ecosystem is not something that easy to do successfully. Actually, there is a need to study, like I have mentioned earlier. There should be programs and activities which are not cheap if you do it properly, since you have to work in the ocean. Working in the ocean and working in the land is quite different, completely different, because you need special equipment, you need apparatus and expert as well in terms of working in the oceans. So there is a need of specific funding to manage that, to manage the programs and activities, which can be come from central government or other funding sources like ADB, for example. I think I stopped there.
Yeah.
Yes, and we can discuss later on if there is any questions.
Yeah, thank you, President Amba. I think you made it very clear. It's not just about urban planning, it's also about coastal and environmental planning, and that requires awareness among urban planners and collaboration again with relevant experts. And that then again leads to better resilience and improved clustering of cities together with, of course, creating in green spaces and green protection areas. So I think you made it very clear, urban planning is becoming a much bigger discipline than it maybe used to be. So I think with that, let's see if we have more questions here from the audience. I think we all want to thank Ibu Vivi for already answering some of the Q&As, the questions that came in. So she provided some answers already. And then we have here a question from Ibu Donna, and that is, how do we encourage communities to really participate actively in implementing the livable concepts? I think this question has 3 levels. Number 1, how do we communicate on the concept of livable cities and the political willingness to take this seriously? The second is, how do we create participation opportunities? And the next one, how do we also educate the general public what livable cities are? And I'm looking around at all of you. If you can maybe go around quickly. How do we want to start? Who wants to start answering that question? Ibu Vivi?
Yeah, may I? Okay.
Yes, please.
Just a brief comment. Yeah, I would like to highlight 3 important keywords from my perspective. The first one is literacy. If we want to encourage community to be involved optimally, then we need to ensure they are well literated with any issues related with this kind of livable cities problems. Yeah, and then the second one is empowerment. So it is not enough just to make sure they are well literated, but they also need to be empowered. And of course, it needs what have been mentioned several times, inclusive works of all related stakeholders. And last but not least, my third keyword is commitment. So I'm sure it requires commitments, including maybe commitments from ADB, of course. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I like that you're giving that a responsibility to the MDBs and development organizations, right? Who can build capacity and implement in these aspects of sustainability and capacity development. So thank you for that. I'm looking at Professor Marlon. I think you're ready to say something, and maybe you can share some experiences from your work, how we create more participatory approaches for communities.
Susan, thank you. One phrase that we're beginning to talk about in some of the universities in the US is the co-production of knowledge, partnering with communities in a way that's really an equal partnership. In an older model, we thought, well, we're the experts, we'll come up with ideas, and then we'll kind of take those to the community. And that has limitations, is simply the way to phrase it. So I know in my work the last 2 years, we've been partnering with a community group in some of the more working class neighborhoods in Los Angeles, looking at their transportation needs. And we find we have to really engage them throughout the process. They have to be full partners. We find that they bring concerns to the table that I would say the experts would not anticipate. And what that means is that we are not understanding what the communities really are desiring. And so you have to have this constant partnership, I'd say.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you very much. I think they're great examples in Asian cities. If you think of Hong Kong or also Singapore, very, very community-centered approaches to planning and needs assessment. I can see here, Ibu Noni, you'd like to say something. How do we create this real community participation?
Yes, thank you very much. From our experience, I think it is very important. I agree with Ibu Reed and of course, Professor Marlon, that we need to engage them early enough. As a private company, the way we do things is through understanding what our customers need. So if we translate that to the customers of the smart city or livable cities themselves, are the communities, right? They're the one who's going to live in the city. So if we can understand and engage more, because at the end of the day, the easiest way to make them engage if they can feel the benefit for them. So it has to be, what is the benefit for the community in order to get them engaged? Because it really, it doesn't work if we don't address that issue. Thank you.
And I think, Ibu, this links very nicely to the question from, I guess it's Pak Ruko, from Vicky. He submitted this question on the YouTube channel. Is for the private sector, there seems to be a real business case for it, right? You need to ask your clients and customers what they want. I mean, this is your interest. Whereas for the public sector, we still seem to struggle, right? Are we really delivering on the needs of the communities? What's the accountability mechanism? So maybe we can hear on that question. I don't know who would like to answer, maybe Professor Amba or also Ibu Vivi, on how do we really make the public sector accountable to deliver on livable cities?
Well, actually, I'm not expert in private sectors. And not directly.
I mean, the public sector, how do we make the public sector really responsible to deliver?
Okay. It is interesting. My experience working with community in coastal area, north coast of Java, and like have been mentioned by Professor Marlon, Puyi, and Ibu Noni, that involving community from various states and of the development is very important. Actually, in theory, you should do that. And the fact that we actually apply the theory when we got and we take the involvement of the public from early state of the development, it's guarantee more successful of the program rather than you are not getting involved them. And what I say that university has three main program, which is including community services. So we are working with community very closely. So every government or every program, please use us to work with public, to work with community, whatever the problems you are facing, and we can do that. Because when we work with the community, probably there are two different sources of problem from community that they brought to us, and we can help them to solve the problem, or maybe ideas from us to to tell them, not tell them, but actually to encourage them to change and in terms of development of their area. So when we are talking about public, please again use universities, and especially in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is a great key message. Different partners need to be involved in really surfacing communities' needs and engaging with communities. And I'm sure, Ibu Shinta, you have examples from tech startups too, right? Who are actually surfacing community needs, creating participation. You mentioned, of course, also education. Any examples there where startups have a user-centric approach to understand community needs?
Okay, so I think startups that are building smart city applications, most of them have to deal with community, because that's the only way they can understand what the public needs. But I think one thing that we have to remember, educating and doing the adoption of this application, we need also to do a lot of marketing. So maybe that's not really talked about, but I think marketing is also really key here. And so what I see, some of the startups that are in that sector, they do have to not only talk to the community, they have to also communicate through marketing. It could be digital marketing, through YouTube and all that. That's one way they actually do it at the moment. And I know a lot of the challenges of the startups that when they come to me, they always complain the fact that they don't have high-skilled programmers That's one of the things that we're lacking here in the country. So beside, communicating about the application, about the platform, I think we have to remember that there's this side, when we want to grow this platform, we do need the right people. And so I'm hoping we should have more with the universities, I guess, and also with other private sectors to actually build more high-skilled programmers. I don't know how to do that, but because it's a problem for all countries, not only Indonesia. But I think that's the key here. Like, if you want to touch the community, we do marketing, but at the same time, the company always have this challenge, like not having the right people. Because we talk about smart city, we talk about big data, AI, and all that, and that needs like the right people to do it.
Yeah, I think great message. I take two messages away. Number one is community engagement can be facilitated through technology, obviously through social media. It helps also with branding and socializing the concept of livable cities. But to do that, you need to have the skills and enabling environment for people to participate. So that's kind of creating inclusive environment for participation. I think we are on top of the hour. We have one more question here from Pak Rudy about learning from best practices. Maybe we can answer that. Maybe Robert from ADB can answer that also. What kind of learning platforms exist across the region and among development partners to share these kind of best practices? I think what we learn from the knowledge management perspective is, yes, it's great to learn from more advanced cities, but often it's more about problem-solving skills and understanding how to solve context-specific problems. And that's a different skill, right? That requires more than transferring what we learn. That requires more kind of critical thinking and understanding how to apply what you've learned elsewhere. But this requires an entire webinar and seminar, and we would be very happy to come back and have this discussion. So I would like to thank all the discussants and panelists for the engagement and for the great inputs. And again, I would like to invite all participants here to please read the book. There will be also bite-sized pieces of that book, which are easy to digest. Please also share with us your comments and thoughts. You can always email us directly, or you can join ADB LinkedIn Knowledge and Innovation site, or any other of ADB's or of course the university social media platforms. Again, Professor Amber, thank you very much for providing us some holistic summary at the end. And of course, Ibu Vivi, thank you also for answering the questions. And with that, I would like to end, and I thank the private sector, obviously, and Professor Marlon. And with that, I'd like to hand over now to Pak Said to walk us through the remaining of the program.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you for thank you as well to all the distinguished panelists for the very interesting and deliberative discussions that we just had. Now, may I invite my colleague Robert Gill, Chief Sector Officer of our Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department, to provide us with some reflections and some key takeaways from the discussion that we've had this morning. Over to you, Robert.
Thank you very much, Pak Said, and selamat pagi to all participants there in Indonesia and elsewhere, wherever you may happen to be. I'm just really, really grateful for this event today, because even though I edited the book, I learned lots of really useful things from examples that were cited by participants and through the discussion. I don't think it's really possible to summarize the key takeaways. I think that the book itself, as structured, tells you a little bit about what we think are some of the priorities for developing livable cities. I think that maybe the main unstated key takeaway from the book itself is that everything is or needs to be integrated. You can't talk about housing affordability without talking about mobility for people, to expand job catchment areas and be able to live where they can be productive. You can't talk about e-mobility without sustainable energy. And everything obviously has to be resilient, or there's no point building it in the first place. So overall, I would think the key message of the book is that we have to continue being integrated urban planners, as those of us who are trained in the profession think about it. We have to continue to think about the kind of future that we want. And I know this will make Susan smile, but we do have to envision have the foresight to see the kind of cities we want to build, and then sort of work backwards from there to make sure that we have the right people, the right policies, the right professionals in the various agencies that start talking to each other a little bit more and develop more comprehensive, more integrated urban plans. Those of us who've done urban planning or strategic planning, we know the old ways of doing it. Some of those old ways aren't working so well anymore, and we need to reach out and draw more connections, more of a web than a linear process. And finally, I just want to say that I was really inspired by the stories in many of the chapters of the book, as well as in today's discussion, about the positive aspects, the great outcomes we get when we are more inclusive in our planning, when we engage with not just other professionals, not just private sector and public sector, but with communities, with NGOs who really inform that process for a much richer outcome. Really, all I can say is thank you so much to everybody who contributed to the book, everybody who contributed to this launch event today. And I hope we start building a community of like-minded urbanists in the region, and we can keep this conversation going. So with that, terima kasih.
Thank you so much, Robert, for for some reflections at the end of this lively discussions that we've had. Now we're approaching the end of the event. I have the honor now to invite Professor Agung Wibowo, the Dean for Engineering Faculty, Universitas Diponegoro, to provide us with some closing notes. Pak Agung, over to you.
Thank you, Pak Said. My name is Muhammad Agung Wibowo, the Dean of Faculty of Engineering, Diponegoro University. It was very, very grateful and very interesting discussion. It has very comprehensive and strategic knowledge because the participants, the keynote speakers who come from the university, like Prof. Malon, Prof. Ambar from Undip, and Ibu Wiwi from Undip, and also they come from private sector, it's from Bu Noni, from Bluebird, and also Bu Sinta from Bubukom, and also from the government, the Bappenas. It is very comprehensive and very inspiring discussion. I do hope that the students who attend this discussion got the benefit for this knowledge, and I do hope as well this collaboration can be strengthened in the future time. Thank you very much, Pak Said. Time is yours.
Oh, thank you, Pak Agung, for that brief closing note and the kind message. And with that, we're now at the end of our discussion. So please, everyone, can you join me and give a big round of virtual applause and thanks for all the speakers, panelists, and moderator for their respective roles in this very rich and productive session. Once again, thank you and have a good day to all.
Yes.
Thank you, Pak Said. Prof. Agung,
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Terima kasih. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bu Noni, Bu Sinta, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Makasih Pak Said. Makasih Pak Bambang.
Makasih Pak Prof. Ambar. Makasih teman-teman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Bambang.
Terima kasih, Pak Bambang.
Pak Said.
Thank you, Pak Bambang.
Bu Desi, Bu Wiwi.
Terima kasih.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. A very good evening there.
Izin leave, Bapak Ibu.